Well, hello, Divi Nation. Welcome to a brand new Divi use case live stream where each week we show you how to add new design and functionality to your Divi websites. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to add a scroll down hover effect to images, which will allow you to preview entire web page designs in Divi. And this, I believe, is an elegant solution, nice interactive element that I think you're going to love. Don't forget to check the video description for more info on this use case, and let's not waste any time. I'll jump in and get started. All right, so hopefully I'm coming in loud and clear for everyone. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up and let us know where you're from in the comments. Say hello, and of course, ask all the questions you need. Hopefully I can get to those during this live stream. All right, hello. Jinju, I like the greeting. Wow, not sure what the wow's for yet, but thank you. Michael, what's up, Divi? John, welcome. All right, so a lot of people are joining us. I love the hellos. Colin, dear, Christina from Mexico, welcome everyone. All right, Monique, thanks for letting me know I'm coming in loud and clear. All right, so I'm going to jump back in right into this preview here. You can see on my screen I have a working example of the complete design that we're going to be building today. This is, pretty simple, clean layout because we're basically showcasing the functionality of adding a scroll down hover effect on these images, which allow you to preview the entire web page design, which is something useful for, of course, web designers, for whether it be in a portfolio or a gallery page to feature their work and examples of their work. This allows you to save, space initially and then add that interactive element. As you can see, when I scroll over, you can view the entire web page on hover. And as you can see, this will come to a stop at exactly the right spot, which is nice. And I'll show you how to do that with Divi's new transform options, which are really cool. And as you can see, the speed in which the transition duration can be altered. So this is a really great option for building this kind of functionality out in your website without a plugin, and it really gives you a whole lot of control as well. So I'm really excited to get into it and show you how to do this. All right, so first things first, we will be using Divi, of course, so make sure your Divi theme's active and live. And I'm going to be building on the front end, so with my Divi Builder active on the front end here, first thing I'm going to do is create a new row with a 3-column structure. This will work with any column, but I'm going to start with a 3-column because we're probably going to want to display multiple items here, images that we'll want to add the scroll down hover effect to. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually customize my row here. And don't forget to check out the video description for a link to the blog post article that just went out this morning, or whatever time it is, a couple hours ago, that you can check out and follow along or refer back to later if you need more information. Not sure if you can hear me, guys. Looked like I had a brief connection issue. All right. Looks like I'm getting back up and running here, so I apologize if there was a delay there. All right. So where I am currently is I have added a new page, of course, and I started to add a new row with 3 columns in it. And the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and update my row settings. So to do that, I'm just going to open my row settings here. Make sure you can see those. And I'm going to actually give it a custom width. So I'm going to go to my sizing here. And if you don't know this already, you can, instead of using the make this row full width, you can actually use a custom width with a percentage of 100%, which is a little different. It kind of gives you more control over the responsive design, like on mobile and phone. I'm sorry, tablet and phone displays, and specifically in the area of the padding and stuff around on the sides, on the left and right of your row. So I like to give my custom width 100% here. And then I'm going to come down to my spacing, and I'm going to add my padding here to 5% on the left and then 5% on the right. And then I'm going to do, this is going to be helpful for getting my design looking right on mobile. So I'm just going to add a 25% padding to the left and right on tablet. That'll shrink up my space so my images will be more consistently sized on each device. And for this one, I'll just do 15% on phone. And all right, so I'm going to save that out for now. And let's make sure my live stream is still good. All right, we're good. All right, so now that I got my row set up, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back into my row settings. And this is kind of a crucial aspect of getting this functionality to work. And the trick is to size my columns of my row. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a specific custom height. And then I'm going to give it an overflow hidden CSS property, which will, hide my image when I start adding these images in. It will hide it whenever it's overflowing outside of the column. So we need to do both those things, and it'll make more sense as we go along. But I'm going to add overflow hidden, excuse me, wrong spot. We need to add it to our columns, each one of our columns. So overflow hidden. And then we're going to give it a height of 400 pixels. All right, so when you set a height like that in the CSS here to the column, it will stay 400 pixels no matter what. So that's what we want to do here. I'm just going to copy that and add it to each one of my column main elements. So column 1, column 2, and column 3 main elements all have the overflow hidden, height 400 pixels. All right, so now our row is ready to go. So now you can see my row in the visual builder here is 400 pixels, ready to add our images. So to do that, I'm going to click on my left column, or my column 1 here, and add an image module. And I'm going to go ahead and give my image module an image. We're going to add one of these web page design preview images that you can, that actually you can see on our own website when viewing our layouts. So I'm just taking the examples from our wedding engagement layout pack preview screenshots here of the entire web page. And I'm going to grab my, I guess this is the home page. And this size of this image is initially going to be around 800 by 1600 pixels. So, but as you can see, whenever it is within my column, the image will shrink to the column container, and also it will be hidden. The bottom portion of the image will be hidden because I've set my column to 400 pixels, and then I've hidden the overflow of that column. So that's why I only see the top portion here of the page, which is a great way to kind of showcase the page as a thumbnail. and we're kind of set up for our transform property. All right, so there's my first image. And so here's the main aspect of this functionality where it takes place. It's doing two things. So I'm going to be using my transform options to let's go to transform, and then I'm going to click my transform translate tab here. Translate and essentially means, you know, we're moving it around. Okay, so this will move my element around, but I don't want to do it on the default state. Actually, I want to do it on my hover state only. So make sure your hover option is deployed there, and then click the hover tab, and then make sure transform translate tab is selected. And I want to add a percentage here. Obviously, if I wanted to move it upward, I'd have to know, you know, the exact pixels or how high in pixels this image is, and then, you know, move it upward that amount, which would get really cumbersome and not really something I want to do with each one of my images. So we're going to use a percentage, which will guarantee that my I'm going to unlock my option on the X and Y axis, because I don't want to, you know, move them around at the same time. So I just want to move it up on the X axis here upward by 100%. So to do that, I'm just going to give it a negative 100%. As you can see, it just kind of jumped out of the screen there. And I'm going to toggle back and forth just to show you what's happening on hover. So the default is there, and then on hover, it moves it up 100% upward and along the x-axis. So that's what we want to accomplish. But obviously, it's still not positioned on the page at the end of the hover state yet. To do that, we're going to, this is the second thing that needs to happen, we're going to add some spacing. We're actually going to make up that space to bring that image down in the right spot. And to do that, we're going to give a custom margin on the hover state. So I'll make sure the hover tab is selected on my custom margin there, and I'm going to give it a top margin, which is going to be equal to the column and the height of the column, which is 400 pixels. And as you can see, it brought it down to the right spot. So now, if I go to my default state there, and then go to my hover state, now it will perfectly stop where it needs to stop at the bottom of the column. So there's a little trick there to use the custom margin along with the transform translate option there to get the hover functionality we want. Hope that made sense. All right, so I'm going to continue on. If you're just joining us, I do want to welcome you to this week's Divi use case live stream. And in this tutorial, I'm showing you how to use Divi and to add a scroll down hover effect to your images that will allow you to use users, I should say, to preview web page designs, which is, I think, a great interactive element that I think you're going to love. Right now, if you need more information, don't forget to, you know, click or look in the video description for a link to the blog post that goes along with this tutorial. So let's get back to it. I do want to just remind you where we are. We're basically done with the basic functionality of the scroll down hover effect. So I've added my transform option of the transform translate upward by setting it to a negative 100%, not pixels. That's very important. And then the margin here in the hover state is, the top margin is 400 pixels, which is equal to the column height, which will make up that difference, putting our image where it needs to be at the end of the hover state. So I'm going to save that out. And let's just go ahead and look at it on the live version of the site quickly. You can see that when I hover over it, it scrolls through and stops in the right place. But as you can see, it's pretty quick and not really user-friendly at the moment because I can't really preview the design or process it in any way. So to do that, I'm going to click back into my image settings here. And the way you control your transition speeds, or duration, I should say, is in the Advanced tab. Go to the Transitions tab there. And right now, the default is 300 milliseconds, which is too fast. Here is where it's kind of cool. You get more control over each individual image, because if you have a large image, you might want to really slow down the speed, because remember, the transition duration is the time as soon as you hover over it, from the start of that hover effect to the end of the hover effect, that duration. So do I want this the hover effect, essentially, do I want it to last 300 milliseconds? More like 4,000 milliseconds or 4 seconds. And this transition speed curve here, this kind of this actually alters, if you're not familiar with what that is, it actually alters the speed which of the hover effect, or the transition, within the transition duration. I know that's kind of weird, but just kind of gives, by default, it's going to be kind of like an easing in. It'll kind of start off slow and then build up speed, and then end in a slower manner. If you don't want any of that, speed curve in there, you can just set it to linear. It'll just scroll down at the same pace throughout the whole duration. But I'm just going to keep it ease for now. I like that effect. And I'm going to save it. And let's look at it on the live site now. You can see that the 4 seconds transition duration is more user-friendly there. I can, process what I'm looking at. And you can even add, up to 8 or 9 seconds if you want. Probably would still work well. So that's the basic functionality. All I would need to do here is, copy and paste my image. And then, since the cool thing about it is, because of the way it's set up, I don't really need to, I guess what I'm saying is any size image will work, no matter how or what the height of the image is, because of our transition translate setting is to pull it up 100% and to counter that with the column height. So you definitely, it's really easy to just update these images to whatever you need. For example, let's just pull in this one. This is the about page, I believe, which is significantly longer than the one before. And, I can save it out. Let's change this image really quickly to something else. Let's do this one, a shorter one. And let's save it. You can see that just by copying and updating the images, we can quickly add new images to our, gallery or portfolio page or whatever it is you're using it for. All right. I have a question from Amin. I think is how you pronounce that. Good question. How will this look on mobile? We will get there. I'll make sure and show you what that looks like on mobile. But for a quick sneak peek, here it is. As I come to my tablet state, because it'll just look very similar and just stack together, and the same on mobile. But good question. All right, let's get back to it. Now, that's the one challenging thing that, of course, you might want to add some labels or some headings above or below these items. And if you're familiar with how Divi works, it's going to be, you're going to need to add a text module to this column, because if you added another row and then started adding the headings in a different row below one of these, well, it's not going to stack correctly on mobile. So you're going to actually need to add your text module to the column. And so I'll show you how to do that. The easiest way, make sure I'm not missing anything before I go on here. All right, so the easiest way to do that is I'm going to actually go to my wireframe view mode. The reason is because my column has a set width and these images are actually spanning far below the column, it's being hidden. So I can't really get to my add new column icon button down there. So that's where our wireframe view comes in handy here. And all I'm going to do is add a text module. And then I'm going to pull it up to the top of my image here, open up the settings, and then toggle back my desktop view mode. Now I'm going to add some text to my text module here. I'll just call it the home page, something like that. And you can see it pop up over here. Let's go ahead. Now you have to think about the fact that this image will be scrolling upward and in the same column. So we don't want it to kind of overlap our text module above. We want to make sure that text module stays in order on top of the image module that sits below it. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. But first, let's give it a background color of white so that we don't see the image behind it when it scrolls upward. And let's go ahead and make our text orientation centered. And for my heading text, it's a H2, so I'm going to click my H2 tab there. And I'm going to change my text size to 20%, pixels, 20 pixels. I'm going to give my line height 2 EM. And if you're wondering, the 2 EM here, the EM property basically is saying it's going to be 2 times whatever the parent text size is, or the text size, which is 20. So it's 2 times 20. So really your line height, if it's set to 2 EM with a 20 pixel text size, it's going to be 40 pixels high. So that's important to remember. I'll explain why in a little bit. Then I'm going to give it a custom margin, bottom margin of 0. That's because if you have your gutter width default to 3 or 2 or whatever, anything but 1, it's going to add in the theme, it's going to add some custom margins around your modules in between the spacing there. This basically gets rid of that default margin that's added automatically to kind of shrink up that space there between the text module and the image. And then for the padding, every H2 header at the theme setting gives you a 10 pixel kind of bottom padding to your headers automatically at the theme level. So to counter that, I'm actually going to give a 10 pixel top padding, kind of even that spacing out a bit. And there's more information on this, on the reason why I do that in the article. I explain why. It basically allows me to, by understanding all this, it allows you to kind of predict how exactly high that text module is going to be, which is going to be important in a little bit, and I'll show you why. All right, so now I got my spacing down. Let's go ahead and give it real quickly a box shadow. Cool effect there. You can't really see it. I'll shrink down my blur strength a bit. But now what I need to do is, because I can't really see it on top of my image, I need to go into the Advanced tab, go to my custom CSS, and I would, before I add the z-index, which is going to need to be 3, you can see that it does change, and I can see it above right now, but I also need to add a position relative to it because it's actually, by default, it's a position of static, which doesn't really obey the text z-index really well. So that's going to help fix that. And now I think we're ready to go. I'm going to save it. And let's check it out on the live version here. So there's my heading. Got that box shadow there. Looks nice. And then the functionality is there with my heading in place. One thing, though, I still need to do is, you'll notice at the end of the hover state, the image doesn't reach the very bottom like it used to perfectly. That's because I added something to my column, which kind of messed up our margin counter here that we did at the image. So if you remember, our image has this custom margin on hover, which is equal to the column height. Well, because we added a text module, we need to account for that text module height in there. So to do that, I'm just going to give it a 340. Oh, that is not 340. That is way too much. All right. Yeah, so there's a 340. And you can see that that does fix our problem because I know that my text module is actually 60 pixels high. And once you know how high your text module is, you can just, subtract that from your column height there, and that's how you get your margin value on hover. Top margin, I should say. I'm going to save that out. Now we can preview it again on the live version, and it should stop where it needs to stop with our title there in place. Now, all I need to do is jump over to my wireframe view mode, and let's go ahead and copy and paste that text module above each one of our images. And then, of course, you can go and update the text as you need, but that pretty much takes care of our design. I still need to update my margins for these two images, so I can use multi-select to do those two. Open my settings, come down to my spacing on hover. My margin needs to be 340 pixels top margin. And there you go. That'll fix it. See if we got any questions. Pretty much ready to wrap this up. I went pretty quickly there. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and do, if you wanted to add more, of course, you can duplicate the row. That's what I love about this. You can actually duplicate all this, and only thing you need to update are images and text. And of course, the transition duration, if you have really long pages, you want to slow it down a bit. And then this design currently, if you just change, the background to something like that, just by changing the background of the entire section, make those items pop a little bit, which is nice. So it was actually really easy to do once you understand how everything works. And it's also really cool that you don't need a plugin to do it. Any other questions? I feel like I might be missing out on some questions. I think my my stream connection was going a bit haywire for a bit, so I might have missed some of the questions there. But if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out here. And also, You can reach out in the comments on our blog article as well. Try to get those answered for you as well. All right, so all right, that's all I got for you this week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And please be sure to subscribe to our blog newsletter, our YouTube channel, and like us on Facebook. That way you don't miss out on any future live streams. And don't forget to check out our next live stream, which will be this Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. That is going to be the weekly WP Roundup. And we'll be back here next Tuesday to do another Divi use case live stream. And don't forget, if you want to share your knowledge, skills, expertise on the Elegant Themes blog, check out the video description for more info on how you can contribute your own unique content. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys soon.